Hello and welcome back to my Instagram series called Teach Me Something. Today I'm joined by the very lovely Mr. Harry, who is a chronic health educator, chronic pain, chronic health educator. So welcome, Harry. Thank you for donating your time.
Thank you, mate. Pleasure to be here.
I know. All right, let's just kick it straight off then, shall we? So in its simplest form, what do you do for a living?
I'm interestingly in a bit of a transition phase at the moment. I think I hammered down the traditional avenue of the transformational coach, which is a bit of an obligatory path when you move to the Gold Coast. And I think now I kind of went down that avenue and realized it probably wasn't what I wanted to do, and I wanted to look a little bit more big picture. And so as an educator, what I'm doing now is basically speaking on stages a lot more and connecting basically the network of holistic health practitioners who offer really powerful solutions to people in the realm of chronic illness, but are really bad marketers and really don't put themselves out there. So providing the link between people who need the help and then the help that's out there, because I'm really like a firm believer that the help is there for people. It's just getting it to them.
For sure. Amazing. How did you find the transition of the change or the pivot into specifically chronic pain?
In terms of me,
How
like
did you
from a
find that?
transformational coach perspective, or
Yeah, so how did you find that niche? And how did you figure out that was sort of what you were interested in going down?
yeah, lived experience, which I think is for most people probably where they start. So I had a 6 year battle or 6 year kind of dealing with something called complex regional pain syndrome, which is it's known as CRPS. It's one of the most painful conditions that humans can get, and so there's something called a McGill Pain Index, which basically ranks the chronic pain
Yeah.
conditions, and yeah, it's up there with kind of unprepared childbirth, amputation, and other stuff that you don't want to deal with. So yeah,
Mhm.
6 years of that kind of well and truly ironed a lot of learnings and a lot of realizations into my psyche, and yeah, so a lot of things to impart for people on how to get through that.
Amazing. Is that McGill's, is that Stuart McGill's like um teachings as well? So Stuart McGill's got
Yeah,
like his big three for chronic back pain, which I've
yeah, which
used
is which
extensively.
yeah, and some people consider that to be a bit outdated in terms of his framework, but that scale is regularly referred to. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think his big three really helped my sciatica out. And yeah, I would swear by that pretty much, which is
Love
good. And being like a former health coach, been a personal trainer for years, like I've adapted that to help other people as well, which is great. So it's just funny because I've never heard anybody else speaking about Stuart McGill. So that's cool. That's cool. It's like a little
Love it.
nerd in me is coming out. It's good. Um, so tell me more about chronic pain. Okay, so how you've mentioned Stuart McGill's pain scale. So if I
Mm.
was in a crowd, how would you tell me how to move forward if I had, say, for example, a chronic back issue like I've got, like I had even?
Mm.
What would be the
It's such
starting
a
block?
Yeah, so it's such an individual thing, and there's such an accumulation of potential stresses that lead someone to get to where they are. And I think where people get wrong is going at the symptom first and understanding, like, okay, how do I just address the symptom? And it's quite a common approach these days, but you got to look at understanding what are the factors that come into this. And if you break it down into, what are the stresses that take you to get off track in regards to some sort of physiological decline, and um, you know, in terms of chronic illness, generally that's from stress in three forms. So there's a physical stress element. Has there been impact? You're very sedentary, you're not moving? Are there structural issues? Have you had impacts, car accidents, injuries? Then there's the biochemical elements of, okay, what's internally you're dealing with, what sort of chemical issues, what's your diet like, all of these other factors, air you breathe, EMF, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then that's a touchy one. And then going into like the psycho emotional elements of emotional stress. And there's a great book. I actually haven't delved too far into it, but a lot of people are referring it to me recently, which is, how to heal. I think it's like healing back pain. And it basically talks into the emotional impact of stress and how that impacts the physical body. So what I would say is you got to take a wide lens and you got to think, what are the things that are causing me the most stress in my life, or that are potentially the most impactful? Where does the most stress come from? And that's a journey, and that's not a simple solution. But what I would say is, if you lead with a sense of curiosity around your circumstance and wanting to find a solution, then
Yeah,
you will get there. Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, I resonate with what you say. I think going at it from like a fisheye lens and trying to bring in or cut out even what you even thought would could be a trigger, I guess. Um, so yeah, I get you. That's cool. Um, as a coach, what would you say the main traits for you are that make you into the coach you are today?
Mm. I think obviously having a grounding in a lived experience is pretty paramount. Like, I mean, I can't speak from another perspective. There's probably benefits in some ways of having the detached element of not having lived through something, because the biggest challenge of, like, for me, coaching people when I did step into that space was a couple of things: getting out of the peer zone per se and stepping into that role and having the authority to just kind of speak into the perspective of, like, I'm now offering that role for you, as opposed to just being there in it with you. And
Yeah,
with that, comes the challenge. And then the second challenge is then saying, okay, understanding that sometimes leaving someone in their pain to have the realization and move through what they need to is the most empathetic and sympathetic thing you can do. So it was the thing I struggled the most with, but understanding that the only way is through. And sometimes you got to play the long game with someone, and understanding that I don't necessarily want to take you out of the pain you're experiencing, particularly emotionally, because I understand that you have to move through that to be able to actually get to the other side. So I
yeah,
think having that awareness, and the reframe for me is that pain isn't the problem, like pain's the messenger, and the solution is through the symptom. So the symptom gives you the avenue to actually move through, but you have to feel it and you have to be able to move through it,
yeah.
which I think a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah, I think it's with trying to deal with those sort of emotions, some people suppress them so far down that their body has no other option to then message them through pain. Like it's quite a harrowing realization. I think for some people, um, it can be very, very difficult to move through. I can imagine. I can't really talk, but yeah, I think that's
Mm. You
can be
you
quite
put it
difficult.
beautifully. Like, you really put it beautifully, because your body will communicate with you to it'll try to be as subtle as it can be. But if you
Mm,
continue to ignore it, then the noises and the sounds and the indications are going to get louder and louder. And for me, that was blaringly loud, and I still wasn't responding. So it was like I had to have a full body shutdown, serious, significant pain, to then have a realization of what was actually causing me the stress in the first place. And there's a lot that goes into that, but ultimately it boils down to problematic behavior patterns, problematic personality traits that go unchecked, and that lead to behaviors that aren't necessarily in alignment with what's best for you. And there's a whole psychological construct around that, and understanding and looking back further, which why it takes some time to unpack why things got to where they were. But once you get back, or you arrive at that realization, then you see the pain as the messenger that's providing you the avenue and the step to actually reach a resolution. And once
yeah,
you change your relationship with a symptom, that's the first step to kind of getting over things, or getting
yeah.
through it. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Um, so another question I've got, I've already told you, but just to pre-frame, but um, do you feel like it's difficult to live up to your online persona in private?
Um, it's interesting, and I probably have battled with this in terms of, like, probably, like, attempting to create perceived authority online. I think is
Okay.
probably the thing where you get caught in this comparison game of, like, I needing to appear more having more conviction, or having more sort of authority than other people. And I get really jaded. The thing I get most uncomfortable with myself is I feel like I'm being inauthentic. And that's
Yeah.
probably, if someone were to accuse me of being inauthentic, that would probably sting the most, because when I was inauthentic, that's what led me to experiencing the most pain and suffering in my life. So I know now that actually gives me and leads me down a very dangerous path. And
Yeah.
when I see that, it's quite triggering for me to see people that are being in that way inauthentic and trying to create and manufacture an image, because not only is it, not actually a full representation of who they are, but I think in today's world, it actually takes away a lot of their capacity to connect with their ideal client avatar, because people resonate with a particular person based on what they put out. And I think for me, that is like a constant challenge. And I wouldn't say it's an easy thing to do, is to create your offstage and onstage presence the same. But for me, it's like that's the only way to really make true impact. And it's something that I endeavor and strive to do.
Mm.
I think, doing public speaking, like for me, mastery comes from being able to close the gap between who you are off stage and on stage. And as my speaker mentor says, like that doesn't necessarily just mean bringing your offstage persona on stage. It means actually bringing your on-stage persona off stage, because sometimes your fullest expression can come out on that stage or online or in that present state. So how can you close the gap between the theatrical fullest expression versus that person who's off it? And I don't
Yeah.
think it's an either or, but I think it's like, can you embody that full range in different ways? If that answers the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that makes sense. It's almost like the integrity piece. You want to remain as integral as you can to the person who you are, and you want to be the person who you say you are. But where's the line? Do you know what I mean? Because you speak on stage and you feel like you've got two different sort of personas, and you almost have to. So if you're not in the mood, you can feel the energy come inside you whenever you go and step on stage, and you're like, okay, cool, you click into it. But then trying to bring that into sort of real life almost can be quite difficult, I'd imagine. I haven't done much public speaking, but I mean, I'm
Yeah,
just
it's
thinking
interesting
hypothetically.
because, yeah, people will like naturally, because it's like it's a common human fear. People are then kind of like, wow, that's amazing that you can do that in front of so many people. But sometimes I find it easier to be up on stage and doing that to a collective where you're actually somewhat detached, the same way that you would be maybe if you're doing it online. But doing it in a one-to-one, having that and showing up for someone and being fully seen in that close proximity is sometimes like something I find harder than the collective.
Mm,
But I think for me, the people that I admire most are the ones that are able to show that full expression and vulnerability online. And I think I just don't like the whole image of like a coach that's got all their shit together. It's not something I resonate with. It's not something that I want to put out.
yeah,
I think it's just not something that kind of works for me. And I think sometimes it's good to have, maybe to have someone that you're like, okay, this person's really got their shit together. So I'm going to borrow the certainty and feel like that they've got me and they understand because they're always in control.
yeah,
But I guess it's just not what I resonate with anymore.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally understand that. Totally understand. I think all of us have been sort of have bought into that at some stage, bought into the whole persona of like everything's fine and everything's always going to be fine. I never have shit days, but look, you're human. You're going to have shit days. It's fine. And just
Yeah.
accepting
And I think
that through, yeah,
that was the hardest thing of coaching as well, was like the inferiority complex, or the imposter syndrome around like, who am I to be coaching someone if I'm having shit days and can't handle life? Who am I then to
yeah,
be? So it's then, if I'm putting out that image, then it's like, who am I then to be, holding that space for that person? And I think that's probably the hardest thing to fight for me when I
yeah,
was in
yeah,
coaching. Now I've
yeah,
moved away from coaching. I'm like, fucking great. I can just throw all my
yeah,
shit up online, and yeah,
exactly. Doesn't
that's
matter.
kind of
Like
what I'm putting out there yeah,
it's you.
is different. Yeah.
Yeah, it hits
So I
different.
understand that challenge for people.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
Just before we finish, you wanted to try something and work through a
Mm,
modality with me, right?
mm,
Let's do it.
yeah. Cool. So as we mentioned, like the emotional regulation and the suppressed emotion piece is really challenging for a lot of people, and they generally come in two camps when you think in terms of like, well, particularly I'll just speak into people with chronic pain. some people will be heavily suppressed and they'll be like pushing emotion down and they're detached. So they're all intellectual or they can't access emotion. That was me. There's this other demographic that are hyper emotional, very overwhelmed, constantly crying, constantly like no stability in their nervous system either. And that's at the other extreme. So for me, like emotional regulation is being able to feel and process emotions in a way that is functional and that you can feel, but doesn't flood your nervous system and overwhelm. So what I thought would be useful is just to run a quick process in regards to an avenue of accessing emotion for people who can't, and then also how to clear the charge or to reduce the intensity of an emotion if it's too strong as well.
Absolutely.
Just to kind of give you that takeaway.
Let's do it. Let's go for it.
Cool. All right. Let's drop in. So the intention of this, or just pre-frame, is basically to lean into an emotion, and I'll guide you into feeling a specific emotion, and basically intensify the emotion to the greatest degree that you can. Understanding that emotion is energy and it's a finite resource that if you feel it and lean into it, it's going to resolve and dissipate. What I would encourage you to do is basically bring in sort of some facial expressions, bring some body posture to embody the emotion that we're trying to cultivate. And I'll guide you through that. The intention is just to stay in the feeling, because emotions communicate via feeling. They don't communicate via thought energy. So if you try to intellectualize, it'll pull you out of it. Basically, what we want to do is just get someone to be able to feel again. So it should only take a few minutes, but I'll drop you in and then we'll get into it.
Amazing.
Cool.
Let's go.
Awesome. So just closing down your eyes whenever you're ready, and just bringing your awareness to your breath. So taking a deep breath in through your nose, and then just let it out through your mouth. Slightly bigger one through your nose. Sigh it out through the mouth. One more in through the nose. And sigh it out through your mouth. And then just bring your awareness down to your chest and just feeling and allowing the breath to move through. And just staying with the breath. And in a moment, not yet, but in a moment, we will drop in and start feeling a little bit more into a specific emotion. So just staying with your breath for now. Okay, so the emotion that we're wanting to cultivate is the emotion of disgust. So you don't have to necessarily think of a memory or think of an association, but what you want to do is embody that emotion of disgust. So think about what it is when something smells terrible or you're disgusted with someone's behavior. They've acted in a certain way. You might be disgusted with your own behavior. So if there is a memory that comes to mind, let it come. If not, that's okay as well. And what you want to fully feel is that emotion of complete disgust. Just think, yuck, 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 and that resistance to the emotion. And what you want to do is fully feel the emotion. So you can create the facial expression into that embodied state of disgust. And then bring your awareness to the sensation in your body. Amplify that feeling. And just breathe fully into it. Bring your facial expressions in. I want to bring some body language in to push yourself away from that disgusting stimulus.
I'm laughing because I feel sick.
Good.
I
Drop
can
in,
feel it. Yeah.
feel it fully. Just keep breathing into it and bring your awareness out of your mind and back into your body whenever you get distracted. What's that intensity out of 10 for you?
Like probably about a 7 out of 10. Like I'm gonna get sick soon.
Nice. Cool. Keep turning it up. Just think about turning the volume up on the dial. And just keep breathing into it. Understanding that it's finite and we're moving through it. Feel it so you don't have to feel it again. Just lean in. Just keep breathing into it. Allowing any thoughts to drift away. Just keep returning your awareness to the feeling in your body. Where are you at now in terms of your out of 10?
Yeah, I'm up there. I'm like 8 or 9, probably
Cool.
about 9. I can taste it.
Just stay with it. Stay with it and keep breathing into it. And just keep amplifying the feeling. And it'll slowly start to dissipate if you just stay present with it. You can relax your body a little bit and just start to breathe into the sensation. Just keep feeling into it, leaning into it, breathing into it. That emotion will start to dial down. Staying present fully with the feeling. How you going, Lewis? What are we out of 10 at the moment?
Yeah, I'm trying really hard not to get sick.
Cool. All right, stay with it. And just keep leaning in. That's it. Just stay with it, understanding that when you feel the feeling fully, on the other side is the relief. So just keep leaning in. Just keep feeling, breathing, allowing the emotion to move. Doing really, really well. Almost there. How you going? You still with us?
Yeah, yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Is it starting to?
It's dissipating for sure.
Cool. Cool. So just stay with it. This last little piece is where you want to just stay with it so you can remove this from your system and it's not going to be causing any more havoc. So just keep breathing into it. Just keep bringing your attention back to the sensation. Doing really, really well. Just extending the exhales as you lean into the remainder of what's there. Where are we at out of 10?
Yeah, we're at about 4. It's like gone
Cool.
almost.
Just keep leaning into it for a couple more breaths. Now just provide a sense of allowance for the emotion to be there and allowing it to move in the way that it wants to. Stay present with it and keep feeling it, but remove your grip and control, and just keep breathing into it as you start to feel a greater sense of allowance. Now, sort of bringing your shoulders back and chin up and opening your chest with your eyes closed, embodying a much fuller posture. And as you keep breathing, just allowing that feeling of allowance to flood your system. So feel it emanate from your chest to your shoulders, to your arms, down your torso as that allowance starts to flood your system. Just a sense of ease and allowance. It's filling every cell. Just soak all of that emotion in, amplify that feeling, and just take a couple more breaths to enjoy that emotion. And then whenever you're ready, when you feel ready, you can open your eyes.
That was interesting. Whoa. Coming back to the light too. Wow. Yeah, that was really interesting. I felt like I was actually gonna hurl. I've never felt like that sense of coming up. I just kept on thinking about Bali belly, and that if you've ever had Bali belly, it is the fucking worst. And that whole
Yeah,
sensation just came back to me, and I'm like, oh God.
yeah. And why that's so powerful is I guess in that sense, you're clearing the emotional charge or the trigger or the trauma of the emotion around that. So it's like once that emotion's cleared and the association or the sensation is cleared from the memory, then it's like you can still have the memory and the bad experience, but when you think about it, you don't then get that disgust response because the
Mm,
emotion has been processed. Does that kind of make
yeah.
sense
Yeah,
around that?
like you said before, you've got to like move through whatever emotion is causing you any sort of like discomfort or pain or whatever it may be,
Mm,
moving through that modality through breath work, meditation, make sure it's guided. And yeah, it was good.
exactly. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting that.
Threw you into it.
I know. So
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you. That's yeah,
no, it's
it's
cool.
cool. No. Um
Yeah, I think why I enjoy that one is that like sometimes for people that are in a chronic stress state, they've got breath work or somatic release or an anger release or some sort of movement practice is too full on. Whereas
yeah,
like you
yeah.
can actually just cultivate it purely through a felt sense.
Mm.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing.
Mm.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Harry MacAnch. Is it MacAnch?
MacAnch, yeah.
MacAnch.
I
There you
love
go,
it.
I got it right. All right. Where can people go to find you on socials or whatever?
Yeah, Instagram's good. So
Okay.
Harry MacAnch. So surname is MacAnsh. I'm sure you'll probably tag it on the
Of course I
video.
will. Of course I will.
But
Thank you so
yeah,
much for donating your time. I think you're doing a lot of good work, and I think you're going to help a lot of people as well. And I can't wait to see you speak on stage.
thank you, brother.
All right. Take care.